Shalom uvracha, hello, and welcome to another Torah podcast episode with me, where we quickly do a dip dive in, and we tap into this week's Parshat Shavua, and we are going to do it a little bit from Hollywood to Hollywood style, but originally Hollywood to Hollywood, back to Hollywood. This week's Parshat Shavua is dedicated to my cousin, Shabtai Shai Ben Yona Anulad Nesima. He passed away very young in a tragic car accident. So I want to dedicate this in memory of him and in honor of my beautiful family. And with that being said, we're going to get serious and we're going to read the first few words from Parshat Netzavim. And then we're going to skip around to an amazing story in Tanakh that we all know. It's connected to this week's parasha. So it goes like this: Atem Netzavim, Hayom kulchem lifnei Hashem Elokechem Roshechem, Shivtechem zkenim v'shotrachem kol ish Yisrael, Tevchem neshchem v'gerechem. So Hashem is saying to everybody, Atem, you shall Netzavim Hayom. Today you are going to be standing still. Kulchem, all of you, in front of Yud Kei Vav Kei, Elohechem, the head of your tribes, the police, the elders, the youngers, the babies, the women, the gerim, everybody who's close to your machaneh, everyone is going to be standing there, standing still and listening to my rules, my laws, who's not going to obey it, who's not, and so forth. So I wanted to connect that to an amazing character in the Tanakh, because it's very hard for us sometimes when we hear Divrei Torah, like, okay, so they all stood still by the mountain and heard the voice of God. Like, it's a little bit hard to relate to that in our everyday practical life. And I always say that in my program, I like to teach a simple way where we can learn the Torah, Etz Hadat, and connect it to Etz HaChaim, how we can live it every day. So if we're going to forward a little bit to Sefer Shmuel, where we have the story of David HaMelech, and we all know a little bit about the story where Shmuel comes to Ishai, the father of King David, Jesse, and he says to him, bring me out your son, I want to put oil on him and make him king. And he brings out a bunch of children, and he's like, they're not them. And then he brings out this little redhead, and it's Davido, and he's like, he's the king. Now, what's the story? Let's go backwards a little bit. I'm first going to quote in Shmuel Aleph, Perek Chaf Aleph, and Perek Chaf Bet, in Pasuk Gimel, וילך דוד משם מצפה מואב, ויאמר אל מלך מואב, יצא נא אבי ואמי איתכם, עד אשר אדע מה יעשה לי אלוקים. So he's mentioning his parents here. He also mentions them, his mother, in Tehillim, Tehillim Nun Aleph Zayin, and Beven Chololti v'bechetav v'chamamteni imi, when he's saying how, just like the sin of my parents, he was relating his sin to Bathsheba, to the sin of his parents. So what's the sin of his parents? That's where we're getting a little bit Hollywoody, but it's all Holywoody. And that's the point. It's that it's a repetitive story where we have two wives, the jealous, the beloved, Aisha Uva, Aisha Snua, like in Leah and Rachel with Yaakov, with Hagar and Sarah and Abraham. And then we have the sneaky wife, or the sneaky mother, who does things betachkamanut, like she's like a Tamar, who knew she had a prophecy that she's going to carry the seed of Mashiach and Chule, and she went and dressed up, and Yehuda, and we have that story of Yehuda and Tamar, and we have the story of Ruth and Boaz gives birth to Ishai. And then Ishai marries Nitzevet. Nitzevet is Bat Adael, and she has a bunch of children with Ishai, and they're called Eliav, Avinadav, Shuan, Nathanael, Radai, Otzem, David, and then the two girls is Tzuriah and Abigail. So these boys come out, and they don't get to be chosen king. But before that, when David was born, he's the youngest boy. They say that he's a redhead. They mention that Yetzad David Adom miben achiv, and that's a description how he's born, like he's different. So right there, they're kind of like mocking him and making fun of him and making him being part of the flocks. Like he's like secondhand, like a little bit kind of Hevel kind of a situation. Like I'm better than you, like go be like a Spachtel, you know, a Jobniki. And they call him a mamzer, and they kind of like make fun of him, and then he becomes the king. So you see like the jealousy in there. You see like what kind of they did with Yosef when they threw him in the pit. Kind of heaven. That's really the first story where you have brothers in rivalry. So what's the whole thing here? Is that when David became king, he was 28 years old. And they say that his mama, Netzavim mi achacham roa et hanolad. Who is the wise one that sees the newborn? What is it such a chachma to see a newborn? They smell like Gerber and Gan Eden and like Huggies and Pampers, and they're delicious. Almost all babies are gorgeous. You have to be a very difficult baby not to be gorgeous, delicious smelling Gan Eden baby. It's how to see the potential in a person before they become that, whether they're 2 years old or 20 years old. And David HaMelech's mama had that gift, like all mothers do, but she was super tapped into it. And she had the quality of standing still, nitzevet, הייתה יציבה, she was stable. In Hebrew they say, להיות יציבה, be stable, be solid, like stand still, like just shut it and just no, you know what you know, and you don't have to prove it, just check it. And she kept that secret. She kept David HaMelech Tamun like hidden for 28 years. So outside, she looked like she was upset that her son was like getting bullied, and he's like in the sheep, like a shepelach and a mepelach, and but really, she sent me the secret inside that he is going to be a melech, and how am I connecting that to this week's parasha? This week's parasha is Parshat Netzavim. Netzavim is to stand still. And it's like the mother of David HaMelech, who stood still in her test, because she had to also do a tricky with her husband, Ishai, because he was going to be with the handmaid. It's a whole thing. I'm not going to get into that. It's not the point of the story. They did everything al pi kedusha. You can debate me. You cannot. It's not the point of the story. The point of the story is the name of the mama. And she had to do this whole courageous act where she had to switch and dress up like a prostitute. So all those years, she didn't have the honor and the kavod of a mama, like for this child. But that's how we got David HaMelech. And with that said, with Nitzevet and this week's Parsha, so in Hashem saying, like, Im atem nitzavim iti, if you stand still by me and you stand and obey my laws, I will bless you and etc. But if you don't, I'm cutting you out of this brit. I'm cutting out this contract. Atem lo tihu chelek miYisrael. He says that later in the end. It's a little bit scared. It's like, okay, yes. But we are also not, he said you have to come and love me and do it with be'ava. Not out of fear. Like, don't come to shul because you're nervous, like what the neighbors are going to say, or that you're going to burn in Gehenom. And don't like dress modest to impress me. Do it because you really mean it. Because Hashem knows what's in our hearts. He knows when we're sheker and he knows when we're emet. So he's like, don't like BS me, basically, because I will cut you out of the brit. You know, like once, twice, achamim, chesed, tshuva. But eventually, I'm going to catch your bluff. And I think with Nitzevet, it takes such humility, all these ladies, and I'm going to keep talking about these heroic ladies that no one really discusses. And her name is mentioned in Baba Basra. I have it written down somewhere. She's in Baba Basra. She's written there with the name of Avraham Avinu's mother. I'm Talai Bakar avoids these names that no one ever speaks about. Why do we have to say their names? And just understanding where we're coming from, because a lot of these ladies had to do very weird Netflix series, HBO style kind of thingy-majigis in order to conceive the seed of David and to bring him to be the Melech HaMashiach. And so I think that it's an incredible story to really look into and try to understand the humility of this woman, who should be praised for giving that love to her son and that trust from her heart. Because a mother's heart creates a lot of the child's existence, even though if they might not be together all the time. And I know that personally as a mother of 8 children, and life does funny things, and you're together, you're close, you're not, they grow up. They're in the army, so you're not always with them on a physical level, but you're with them in a different level, which is from your lev. And that's what Hashem wants. He wants our lev, He wants our avah. He does not want us to work out of fear, to awe Him, lirototo, to awe Him, to be in awe of Him, not to be fear of Him, like, oh my God, like the time was when I get pulled over by the police, that uncomfortable fear. Like I should have that with Kucha, not the police officer. But they say Hashem is in every sparker and every person. So I guess when I get pulled over, I get a parking ticket, it's Hashem giving me a parking ticket through a police officer. So I guess we have to sometimes be careful how we treat, like, police officers perhaps, or people in the street, because it's Hashem communicating with us in different ways. And somehow I'm like going in circles, but the point is vado, and everything is Hashem, but we are responsible for our actions, and we're meant to be God-like. That's being Yashar El. Being an Ish Israeli is being a straight with God, Yashar El. And anyone who's Yashar El, hopefully will be able to also stand still. And knowing what you know inside and believing in having an emunah in Hashem to communicate straight with Him through it all. And there's one more thing I wanted to say, and I just remembered, because as I'm like talking Netzavim, stand still, I'm so ADHD. In the 10-minute pop-up shir, I can't even stand still. But over here I have a pasuk from Shir HaShirim. I'm going to read it. And it says, Nishkema lekramim nira im pricha gefen, patach asmadar anetzu arimunim. And then, as I was setting up before, why did the netzu, hey, nun, tzadik vav, it almost had netzevet in it, besides the taf, nitzevu arimunim. It's like when like right before, I guess, the rimon, the pomegranate, like spurts out, I guess there's an inyan to it, like she put in the seed and the prayer and the love and the emunah. And the emunah and the belief and the silence in it and the knowing and working from your head and your heart, you see that she was able to manifest the David HaMelech. So I guess that's what we have to learn. And when the time is right, you'll become like a ripe pomegranate, rimonim, kazeh. So with that being said, I want to wish everybody Shabbat Shalom. When we zoche to stand still and hear the voice of God, because they say when we're sound and calm, that's when we let the flow in and we hear the voice of Hashem, and therefore we don't need to always run to get answers from everybody else. It is important to develop that skill in ourselves, and I think that's also something you learn from Parshat Netzavim, and he's constantly reminding us not to worship idols, and unfortunately our generation is worshiping what I believe is what you took something holy and you start like taking it to the wrong way, that's worshiping an idol. And we do that with the tzaddikim, we do that with kivot tzaddikim. And I think Hashem just wants us to stand still, be sound, be happy, be resilient, and be truthful. Being a tzaddik is not being perfect. David was not perfect. They say like all these people were amazing. David was not perfect. Abraham was not perfect. Sarah Bichlal was not perfect. Like Shlomo was not perfect. They were great in maybe one thing. They took the Oscar home in one thing, but they didn't always have the perfect life and the perfect marriage or the perfect children. So guys out there, everyone relax. Stop trying to be pesel. Hashem told us don't be a statue. Don't worship a statue. Being a statue is trying to be perfect. We're not meant to be perfect. We're meant to be righteous in our ways. B'tzedek. Oh yeah, I touched the wrong thing because of that. Zelo b'tzedek, aval that's my truth. Zeh tzedek, I'm just telling you my truth. Today I did good, today I'm not. Zeo, emet me'eretz titzmach. Truth will rise from the ground. Emet is stamped in the name of Avraham Avinu's mother, Amtalai, Emet Li. Emet is also stamped in Kisei HaKavod, where I don't know the sources of this one, but I've heard that in the Kisei HaKavod, there's a stamp and it says Emet, which makes sense. Aleph Mem Tet. Aleph is the first letter, Mem is the middle, and Tet is the end. And it just makes sense that the truth has straight legs and Sheker doesn't. And when Adam HaRishon sinned, Hashem said to him, Efa ata? Like, where are you? Like, don't lie to me. Just say, Daddy, I screwed up. I was jealous, I was rude, I was nasty. That's it. We should just own it. And with that, wishing everybody, sending you from Eretz Yisrael, from Yerushalayim Yir HaKodesh, Ahava, Bracha, Shalom, V'Reut, Simcha. And we should hear good news, Amen, B'meira B'yameinu.